the 7 biggest cons of living in Vancouver, Washington? That's what we're talking about today. Hey, welcome back to the Living in Vancouver and Camas, Washington YouTube channel. I'm your host, Hannah Dubyne, and I'm glad you're here today because, well, we're talking about the 7 worst things about living in Vancouver, Washington. To set the record straight, I'm not making this video because I hate Vancouver. I lived in Vancouver for many years and, I still feel like I do because I'm right on the border. And I work in it daily. I go to the restaurants there, I go to the businesses there. So frankly, I love it here. But every city, every area in the country has its pros and cons. I would be lying to you if I said it's only positive. That's just not true. So that's why today I am here sharing with you the 7 biggest cons that I've experienced and I know other people have as well, so you can make the decision if Vancouver, Washington is right for you. By the way, before we get into it, sign up for our weekend newsletter, Weekend Happenings with Hannah, down below. If you want to know the best 4 or 5 events happening every weekend, we handwrite it. It's super awesome. Okay, my first biggest con about living in Vancouver, Washington is traffic. Now, I'll preface by saying that traffic here is nowhere near as bad as it used to be when I lived in Seattle area, and it's way better over here on the Vancouver side than it is in Portland. So I think it's pretty much as good as it gets for a large city of 200,000, but we do still have traffic. Your perception of the traffic here in Vancouver is probably going to depend on where you've lived in the past. If you've lived in places like New York or Los Angeles, you're gonna come here and gonna think, hallelujah, there's no traffic. But if you're coming from Mississippi or Ohio or, the middle of nowhere in Kansas, you're gonna say, wow, there's so much traffic here. The main traffic happens during rush hour. So in the morning, I would say 7 to 9 a.m., crossing the bridge, right? And then in the afternoon, it is worse than the mornings. I would say 3:30 to maybe 6:30 is kind of the strong time. If you work from home, you'll probably be able to avoid most of the traffic, and if you work in Vancouver, you'll probably avoid it too. But if you cross the bridge to Portland every day to work or, whatever, if you cross the bridge to Portland, you're probably gonna hit traffic. The second biggest con of Vancouver, Washington is that we have mixed bag housing. Now, when I say mixed bag housing, I don't mean that as like a guise for, it's super sketchy here and our houses are terrible. I literally just mean that at face value. We have random housing in random places. So if you've lived somewhere before where all of the homes in every single neighborhood in this area is amazing and then every single neighborhood in this area is bad, that's just not really what it's like in Vancouver. The reason being that the land has been sold off over time. So, maybe someone owned 5 acres in the middle of Vancouver and they sold off 4 of those acres 30 years ago, and then they continued to live on their 1 acre, and someone built homes on the other 4 acres. That's a very common occurrence in Vancouver, and so it gives this effect of little developments here and there, and some of them are modern, and some of them were built 20 years ago, and maybe there's a old farmhouse in between. And we just don't have those mega super developments like places such as Texas or Arizona where land is ample. Most people come here and they say, hey, looks fine. I'm just gonna live in this area where it's a little bit more homogenous. But some people do come here from time to time and say, no, I really wanna live somewhere where everything is more the same. That is harder to find in Vancouver, so just know that. The third biggest con of Vancouver, Washington is it doesn't have a cute little town, downtown quaint vibe. If that's what you're looking for, Camas, Washington, or maybe downtown Ridgefield is probably more your style, but Vancouver is a city of 200,000. So kind of by default, we don't really have a cute little quaint downtown. We do have a wonderful downtown. It's just not necessarily the cutesy quaint one with the lights strung across the roads and kids out with their lollipops and balloons every day. We also have office buildings down there and it's right off the freeway, so sometimes we do get like homeless traffic. But nonetheless, we have a nice downtown, but it's just not the cute one that you stroll with your kids necessarily. Number 4, our skies are gray in the winter. This is something that you've probably heard about if you're researching living in Washington State or the Pacific Northwest. We do have grayer skies here than most other parts of the country. I will tell you that the stereotype is that every day is gray and every day it rains all day. That is absolutely not true. Go watch my weather video. I'll have it linked down below. about what the weather is like here all year round, but we get a little bit of everything in the winter. We get gray days, rainy days, sunny days. It's winter right now and it's sunny outside. We get overcast, we get hail, we get snow, we get it all. But it is more gray here than other parts of the country. The fifth con of living in Vancouver, Washington is that our housing is more expensive. Of course, expensive is a word that's relative. If you're coming from somewhere where it's super duper expensive, then Vancouver looks cheap to you. If you're coming from somewhere very cheap, then Vancouver looks even more expensive to you. I'm comparing to the USA national average because I feel like that's the best thing to compare to if we're, talking about our country. So right now, early 2023, the national median home sales price in the United States is about $380,000. For Clark County, Washington, which is the area that me and my team serve, the median sale price is about $495,000, so just short of $500,000. That's about a 30% difference. So you need to account for that when you're looking for a job or cost of living. Again, it depends on what you're coming from and your comfort level, but just know that housing here is more expensive than the national average. The sixth biggest con of living in Vancouver, Washington is that this is not a public transport friendly city. Of course, when I say that, it is relative again. I've had people that say they get along just fine on public transportation, but it's just not very widely used here. If you compare it to even just over the river in Portland, a lot more people ride the bus, the train, whatever they've got going on over there. Over here, it's really set up to be a car city. So if you do not have a car or no one in your household has a car, you're gonna have a hard time getting along. The seventh biggest con of living in Vancouver, Washington is the homelessness and the community issues going on. Now, I don't want this one to scare you because if it was really so terrible, believe me, I'd get out of here too. But it is something that we experience, and it's unfortunate for everyone, for the people involved, for us as community members experiencing it. We hope those people can get help. Unfortunately, it hasn't gotten better over the years. It's gotten worse. COVID and the riots of 2020 over in Portland really accelerated things, and I think our city is working on cleaning it up. They've got hotlines and programs. They're doing a little program where people have, I don't even know what to call it, these little boxes that they live in almost, and it's kind of a transitionary period for them to move up to stable housing. We have lots of nonprofits that work with people here. So I think they're trying to trend in the right direction. This is something you're gonna see mostly around freeway exits. So that's it. Those are my 7 biggest cons of living in Vancouver, Washington. I lived in a house in Vancouver for many years. It was wonderful. I live in Camas now. I love Clark County, and again, if I didn't, I would move out of here. If you have questions about living in Vancouver, Camas, or Clark County, Washington, or you're thinking about moving here, myself and my team at Dubyne Realty Group would love to be of service to you, so please reach out to us, email us, text us, DM us on Instagram. We help people every single week move here, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for watching.